grown addicted to surfaces. Once upon a time, mirrors were sacred windows between the visible and the invisible, tools not for vanity, but for discernment. But now, every surface is a mirror, and every soul is a reflection of something it no longer understands. We live in a culture that worships the illusion of radiance while starving the source of life. The body has become a temple, not of the spirit, but of the self. And the altar, once reserved for prayer, is now cluttered with bottles and brands, each one promising salvation in a scent, resurrection in a shade, redemption in a shine. We call them beauty products, but perhaps we should call them what they truly are: quiet rituals of worship, not evil in themselves, but dangerous in what they awaken a dependence on what fades, a devotion to what distracts, a slow exchange of eternal substance for temporary sparkle. The tragedy is not that the world has grown vain, but that the soul has mistaken glamour for grace. The headline whispers of beauty products that secretly drain your spiritual energy. But the truth is subtler, deeper, and far more uncomfortable. It is not the creams and colors that drain you. It is the belief that you must earn love through appearance, that the divine image within you is not enough until it is edited, enhanced, and approved. Every purchase made in insecurity is a prayer to a false god. Every moment spent comparing your reflection to another is an unspoken confession of unbelief, the quiet denial that you were already fearfully and wonderfully made. The marketing does not simply sell cosmetics. It sells identity. It whispers to your wounds, saying, "You are almost worthy, just one more product away." And so the human heart becomes a marketplace, where peace is traded for perfection and presence is replaced by performance. You spend not just your money, but your vitality, your focus, your spirit, until beauty becomes exhausting. You begin to feel it. The subtle fatigue of pretending to glow. The kind of tiredness that no rest cures, because it is not of the body, but of the soul. You try to beautify your reflection, but your eyes grow dim. You try to sculpt your image, but your heart feels hollow. You try to glow for the world, but the light inside flickers like a candle deprived of oxygen. And you wonder, why does every improvement feel like a loss? Why does every layer of polish make the spirit harder to breathe? It is because the soul was never meant to be painted. It was meant to be polished from within. There is a sacred irony here. The pursuit of beauty can either be worship or warfare. When born from gratitude, it honors creation. When born from emptiness, it drains creation. When you adorn yourself out of joy, you celebrate the Creator. But when you adorn yourself out of fear, you replace him. The mirror becomes an idol, and your reflection becomes your rival. You begin to live in negotiation with your worth, never still, never secure, always striving to earn what was freely given. And though you may appear radiant to others, you begin to dim from within. For every mask has a cost. Energy spent maintaining illusion cannot nourish truth. You grow weary, not because you have sinned, but because you have forgotten how to rest in what is real. That is the true exhaustion of the age, the fatigue of self-construction. We are sculptors, forever carving the marble of our own image, never realizing that the masterpiece was already within, waiting to be revealed, not remade. In the language of the soul, beauty is not something you apply, it is something you remember. The face becomes luminous not through pigments, but through peace. The eyes shine not through shadow, but through sincerity. True beauty is not achieved. It is unveiled when pretense falls away and the inner life becomes transparent. But we have traded that sacred unveiling for a counterfeit version, an outer ritual without inner transformation. We wake and reach for the products before we reach for prayer, not out of evil, but out of anxiety. We no longer seek grace in silence, but validation in the glow of the mirror. We no longer ask, "Am I good?" but "Am I enough?" A question that no cosmetic can ever answer. The soul cannot be fooled forever. It begins to rebel in quiet ways, a deepening dissatisfaction, a gnawing restlessness, a sense that the more we perfect the outside, the more hollow the inside feels. We spend hours painting our faces, but we neglect to polish our thoughts. We highlight our cheekbones, but ignore our conscience. We hide our flaws from the world, yet expose them endlessly to ourselves. The heart becomes a backstage dressing room, crowded with products, promises, and props, but empty of presence. And in that emptiness, the spirit begins to whisper, at first softly, like a breeze through a forgotten chapel. You are not your reflection, but we are too busy adjusting our filters to listen. In truth, the spiritual energy that drains is not stolen, it is surrendered. Every moment spent seeking worth in the mirror is a moment spent forgetting who the mirror was meant to reflect. You are not called to shine as the world shines, with surface light that blinds but does not warm. You are called to glow as the soul glows steady, quiet, and alive with love. That light does not depend on symmetry or skin. It depends on sincerity. When the spirit is at peace, the face becomes its reflection. You cannot fake it. You can only allow it. The beauty industry can imitate radiance, but it cannot create it. Radiance is not cosmetic. It is moral. It is born when the soul aligns with truth, when love purifies intention, when humility dethrones vanity. But this world does not believe in humility. It confuses it with weakness. It teaches you that power comes from presentation, that attention is the new oxygen, that your worth depends on being seen, and so you begin to perform instead of live. The mirror becomes a stage, and every look, every gesture, every smile becomes choreography. You learn to act beautiful rather than to be beautiful. Yet deep inside, something resists. You long for rest. You long for a kind of beauty that cannot smear or fade. You long for a kind of confidence that does not collapse when you are alone. That longing is the memory of your origin, the faint echo of Eden within you. It is the soul remembering what it was before it learned to pretend. And if you listen to that longing long enough, something extraordinary happens. You begin to feel the difference between glamour and grace. Glamour exhausts because it demands constant upkeep. Grace renews because it flows from a source beyond yourself. Glamour feeds the ego. Grace feeds the heart. Glamour competes. Grace completes. Glamour attracts the gaze of others. Grace attracts the gaze of God. The world can imitate the first, but only heaven can give the second. And when grace becomes your beauty, you no longer wear it, you become it. You begin to radiate peace that cannot be packaged, confidence that cannot be sold, love that cannot be manufactured. You become luminous in the truest sense, lit from within. That is why the saints, the prophets, the truly awakened souls, those who owned no mirrors, wore no brands, sought no applause, shone with a light that still defies time. Their faces were not flawless, yet they glowed with something unmistakable, the calm certainty of belonging. They did not chase beauty. Beauty followed them. They did not perform holiness. Holiness poured through them. They were not admired for how they appeared, but revered for how they made others feel. Their presence beautified the world because it reminded others of their own forgotten light. And so the question is not whether beauty products drain your spiritual energy. It is whether your pursuit of beauty aligns with your spirit or consumes it. The bottle itself is neutral. The intention behind it is sacred. Do you seek to honor what God has given, or to compete with what he has given others? Do you adorn yourself in gratitude or in fear? For every act of adornment can be either worship or warfare, depending on where it begins. True beauty never demands exhaustion. It invites ease. It does not require hiding. It requires honesty. It is not the art of looking perfect, but the courage to appear as you are. And when you finally learn this, when you finally look into the mirror and see not a product to improve, but a soul to protect you, will understand what real radiance feels like. It is not loud. It is not performative. It is peace made visible. It is the quiet confidence of one who knows that they are already loved. And in that moment, the mirror becomes holy again. It ceases to be a tool of comparison and becomes an instrument of remembrance. You look into it, and instead of seeing flaws, you see the reflection of something eternal looking back. You see the spark of the divine, the image of love itself, the unfiltered truth of who you were before the world taught you to decorate your soul with fear. You will understand then that your task was never to become beautiful, but to become whole. The face will age, the colors will fade, the fashions will die, but the light that lives within the heart will outshine them all. For true beauty is not preserved by time. It is revealed through it. The more you let go of the illusion, the more radiant you become. And one day, when the world's noise fades and your reflection no longer matters, you will find yourself standing in a light that asks for no improvement, a light that sees you completely and calls you good, a light that does not drain, but restores. And you will finally know what every product, every promise, every mirror was trying in vain to imitate the beauty of a soul of peace with its creator. And when that revelation finally pierces the heart, it feels like both a confession and a homecoming, a sigh from the soul that has carried too many masks, too many expectations, too many layers of artificial life. You begin to understand that what exhausted you all along was not effort, but pretense. It was not the act of care, but the burden of performance. You were never drained by your pursuit of beauty. You were drained by the fear that without it you were invisible. The exhaustion of modern life is not merely physical or emotional. It is spiritual dehydration. We have drunk deeply from the well of self-presentation, yet we are still thirsty because the water is salt. It glitters, but it cannot quench. You start to notice how the world trains you to chase reflection instead of essence. The mirror tells you to correct, not to connect. The industry whispers, become flawless, but the spirit whispers back, become free. And somewhere between those two voices, a war rages silently inside. Every advertisement becomes scripture for the insecure, and every purchase feels like a prayer for worth. The packaging speaks like prophecy, radiance, renewal, perfection. And we buy these promises as though they could baptize us from the sin of imperfection. But what they offer is not resurrection, only repetition, a cycle of self-doubt disguised as self-care. The most subtle deception of all is that these products never demand your belief. They demand your attention. They do not need your worship, only your weariness. For the weary soul is easiest to influence. It will reach for anything that promises relief. But spiritual energy leaks not through the hands that buy, but through the heart that forgets. You lose strength not because you seek beauty, but because you seek it outside yourself. You grow weaker not because you adorn your skin, but because you abandon your spirit in the process. And yet, grace waits patiently beneath it all. It does not condemn your vanity. It redeems your longing. For even in the shallowest desires, there lies a sacred seed, the yearning to be seen, to be loved, to be radiant. That yearning was never wrong. It was simply misplaced. The soul wants to shine, but it has mistaken the source of its light. It has forgotten that true radiance is not applied to the surface, but awakened from the depths. What the world calls beauty, heaven calls being. And the day you remember that difference, the entire hierarchy of your values begins to invert. You begin to realize that every ritual of self-decoration can become either idolatry or prayer, depending on intention. If you paint your face in fear, you hide from yourself. But if you paint it in gratitude, you express yourself. If you adorn yourself to compete, you lose power. But if you adorn yourself to celebrate, you amplify it. The act does not define the energy. The spirit behind it does. The same brush that can conceal can also reveal. The same mirror that enslaves can also enlighten. For when the heart is pure, even the simplest ritual becomes sacred. When the heart is vain, even the holiest act becomes hollow. This is why the saints spoke of purity not as cleanliness, but as clarity. To be pure is to be undivided, to have your outer and inner life aligned, your motives transparent, your desires honest. It is not to reject beauty, but to redeem it. The pure heart is not blind to appearance. It simply refuses to worship it. It sees beauty not as possession, but as participation, a way of reflecting the divine order that shaped all creation. When you begin to live in that purity, the entire world becomes beautiful again, because you see not with the eye of comparison, but with the eye of wonder. And wonder is the truest antidote to vanity. Where vanity demands attention, wonder gives it. Where vanity consumes, wonder contemplates. Where vanity drains, wonder restores. The moment you look at a sunrise, a flower, a face, and feel awe instead of envy, in that moment, your soul regains its balance. You realize that beauty was never something to be earned, only recognized. You were born in it, surrounded by it, sustained by it. Every breath you take is an act of participation in the divine artistry of existence. But how far we have wandered from that truth. We scroll through illusions and call it inspiration. We consume faces until we forget their humanity. We study features instead of character, filters instead of faith. We are drowning in imagery, but starving for intimacy. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the heart begins to ache, not from lack of attention, but from lack of authenticity. You can see it in the eyes of those who have everything the world calls beautiful, a quiet sadness that no applause can heal. Because the soul cannot feed on admiration. It needs understanding. And the more we trade authenticity for aesthetics, the more spiritually anemic we become. The greatest tragedy is not that we chase false beauty. It is that we forget our real one. You were not made to compete with others. You were made to complete creation. You were not designed to impress. You were designed to express the infinite through the finite, to reveal eternity in the fragile language of form. The divine image is not a design flaw that needs correction. It is perfection misunderstood. Every wrinkle, every scar, every asymmetry carries a story that no filter can tell. To erase it is to erase your testament. So learn to see with new eyes. The product that promises radiance cannot give what only peace provides. The cream that promises renewal cannot replace forgiveness. The scent that promises confidence cannot equal conviction. These are not enemies. They are imitations, beautiful illusions pointing toward a forgotten truth. They drain you not because they are evil, but because you use them to fill a void they were never meant to fill. Only love can fill that. Only surrender. Only the courage to be seen as you are, without needing to perform the self you think others want. And one day, after the rituals lose their thrill, you will stand before the mirror in quiet clarity. You will look at your reflection not as a battlefield, but as a blessing. You will touch your face gently as if touching sacred ground, and you will whisper to yourself, I am still here. That whisper will heal more than any product ever could, because it will come from truth, and truth does not age, does not fade, does not drain, it renews. It will remind you that your worth was never in your reflection, but in your reflection of love itself. And that is the secret the world forgot. The most beautiful face is not the one most admired, but the one most at peace. The most radiant soul is not the one that glows with youth, but the one that glows with gratitude. The truest beauty ritual is not found in a bottle, but in a life lived with grace, a life that gives more light than it consumes. And when you live like that, you become what every product tries to imitate: effortless, luminous, alive. The soul that knows this truth cannot be drained, for it no longer depends on the fleeting. It shines from a source that cannot be sold, cannot be stolen, cannot be studied. It draws from eternity itself. And one day, when all the mirrors of the world crack and fade, when the colors peel and the faces age, that soul will still be radiant, untouched, unchanging, unbreakable. For it was never decorated. It was divine. It was never applied. It was awakened. It was never manufactured. It was born of love. And in that final revelation, when you see yourself not as a consumer of beauty, but as its vessel, not as an object of admiration, but as an instrument of light, you will understand what it means to be truly adorned, not with powder or pigment, but with peace. The kind of beauty that cannot drain, because it does not depend on what fades. The kind of beauty that blesses rather than competes. The kind of beauty that does not mirror the world, but transforms it. The kind of beauty that heaven recognizes as its own. And as this awareness deepens, it changes the way you move through the world. You no longer enter a room seeking to be noticed. You enter it seeking to notice. The eyes that once searched for approval now search for meaning. The hands that once reached for products now reach for people. The heart that once raced to be perfect now rests in being present. You begin to understand that real beauty is not something you carry on your skin. It is something that moves through your presence, unseen yet undeniable. It is the lightness in your voice when you speak truth. It is the gentleness in your eyes when you forgive. It is the stillness in your soul when you no longer need to prove anything. The world does not know what to do with that kind of beauty, because it cannot be packaged. It cannot be sold or stolen, cannot be applied or filtered. It makes the artificial look loud, the fabricated look fragile, because when you meet a truly beautiful soul, everything else feels excessive. You sense in them something eternal, a kind of serenity that makes you want to stand taller, breathe slower, live cleaner. Their presence is a mirror that reflects not your flaws, but your forgotten goodness. You leave their company, not envying their glow, but remembering your own. And that is how the divine restores the balance through those who no longer chase radiance, but become it. They are not saints in robes, nor mystics in solitude, but ordinary souls who have stopped bowing to false gods. They do not reject beauty, they redeem it. They use the mirror not to measure themselves, but to remind themselves that they are made in the image of something vast, gentle, and infinite. They adorn their faces with love, not to hide insecurity, but to express joy. They move through life not performing, but revealing the quiet power of one who is at peace with their reflection. Yet make no mistake, this awakening does not happen once. It happens daily in the quiet battlefield of the mind, where temptation whispers softly, you could be better if only, and every day you must answer back with truth. I am already enough, and I am still becoming. For true self-love is not denial of growth, but refusal of shame. It is the decision to evolve without self-hatred, to let go of what dims you without despising who you were. Every time you choose authenticity over approval, you reclaim a piece of your spiritual energy. Every time you look in the mirror and see a soul rather than a face, you reclaim more light. Every time you choose gratitude instead of comparison, humility instead of performance, compassion instead of competition, you grow more luminous than before. And slowly, without effort, you become something rare in this world, a being who glows without trying. You begin to see beauty not as a prize, but as a presence, one that deepens with kindness, expands with wisdom, and endures through suffering. You see that every wrinkle is not a flaw, but a trace of laughter. Every scar, not an imperfection, but a chapter of survival. You stop apologizing for the body that carried you, the face that weathered time, the soul that refused to quit. And in that surrender, you grow radiant with a light that cannot fade, because it does not belong to you, it flows through you. That is the paradox of true beauty. The less you cling to it, the more it clings to you. The moment you stop chasing admiration, you start embodying it. The moment you stop fighting age, you start revealing grace. The moment you stop hiding your humanity, you start reflecting divinity. The soul, once freed from the obsession of appearance, begins to shine in quiet defiance of everything the world taught you to fear. For the world is terrified of those who need nothing from it. It thrives on hunger for validation, for perfection, for applause. But when you are nourished from within, you become immune to manipulation. You can still enjoy the outer world, its art, its fashion, its beauty, but you are no longer enslaved by it. You can wear the colors, but they do not wear you. You can paint your face, but it no longer hides your spirit. You can care for your body without worshiping it. You can appreciate form without losing sight of essence. That balance is the art of the awakened, to walk in the world of form while anchored in the formless, to honor creation without confusing it for the Creator. And then life itself begins to change hue. The same sunlight feels warmer. The same faces seem softer. The same silence feels fuller. Because you are no longer seeing through the eyes of need, but through the eyes of gratitude. You no longer measure worth by comparison, but by connection. You no longer drain yourself trying to appear radiant. You simply radiate by being at peace. It is said that in heaven beauty is not seen, but felt, not measured in symmetry, but in sincerity. And perhaps our task on earth is to begin living that way now, to make our lives so full of light that even the most ordinary gestures, a smile, a kindness, a quiet act of patience, become sacraments of beauty. To be so inwardly whole that the world, no matter how loud its illusions, cannot convince us we are lacking. To remember that grace, once awakened, outlasts glamour every time. And when this truth takes root, you will finally rest. You will stand before the mirror one last time, not as a critic, not as a performer, but as a witness. You will look upon your reflection with eyes that see beyond the skin and recognize the soul. You will not say, "I am perfect." You will say, "I am real." And in that simple truth, there will be peace. For the mirror will have done its final work, not to flatter, not to judge, but to reveal. It will show you that beauty was never something to be created, but remembered, never something to chase, but to embody, never something to drain, but to share. You will walk away, not from your reflection, but into it, into the life that no longer hides, no longer performs, no longer fears, into the radiant freedom of one who has remembered that the most beautiful thing in all creation is a soul at peace with its own light. And when peace finally becomes your mirror, everything changes, not because the world stops demanding perfection, but because you stop offering it your obedience. The noise of comparison loses its grip. The endless scroll of unattainable beauty no longer hypnotizes you. You begin to see clearly what once blinded you, that every ad, every slogan, every whisper of not enough was not the voice of truth, but the echo of fear. The world profits from your doubt, because a soul that doubts itself is easily persuaded. But a soul that knows its worth is untouchable. It cannot be marketed to, manipulated, or molded. It is sovereign, and that is the kind of power the world cannot imitate. You begin to move through your days differently. The rituals that once drained, you begin to transform into prayers. The act of washing your face becomes an act of renewal. The moment you apply color becomes an expression of gratitude for the canvas you've been given. The mirror, once a site of judgment, becomes a site of communion. You no longer adorn yourself to be seen. You adorn yourself to express reverence for life. Your reflection ceases to be an enemy. It becomes a friend who reminds you daily that divinity wears human skin. And the light that begins to emerge from you, it is not the frantic glow of performance, but the steady warmth of alignment. People will feel it before they see it. They will not call it beauty, though that is what it is. They will call it peace, presence, grace, kindness. They will not know what to name it, because it will not resemble the beauty they have been taught to recognize. It will not sparkle. It will soothe. It will not impress. It will inspire. It will not demand attention. It will draw it naturally, as light does to darkness. And perhaps, without realizing it, you will become a quiet revolution. You will no longer preach perfection. You will embody truth. You will become the proof that a person can be both radiant and real, both ordinary and divine. You will remind others that their worth was never conditional, that beauty was never a competition, that no amount of external polish can replace the luminosity of an awakened soul. You will not need to condemn the world that worships false light. Your existence will expose its shallowness. The glow of authenticity will make the artificial flicker, and this is how the divine restores balance, not by destroying the world's illusions, but by awakening those who can see through them. The true rebellion of the Spirit is not rejection, but redefinition. It is not to scorn what is beautiful, but to reclaim what beauty truly means. It is not to shatter the mirror, but to cleanse it. When you stop looking at your reflection as a verdict and start seeing it as a vessel, the mirror becomes holy again. It reflects not vanity, but vision. It shows not what you are lacking, but what you carry. And what you carry is vast. There are galaxies behind your gaze, oceans in your breath, eternity humming in your heartbeat. The same intelligence that shaped the stars shaped your eyes. The same light that burns in the sun burns in your soul. You are not a fragment of beauty. You are its evidence. You are not a product of perfection. You are a process of becoming. Every line, every flaw, every scar is proof that you were not built by accident. The divine did not design you to be flawless. It designed you to be faithful. Faithful to your growth, to your purpose, to the truth that cannot fade. You will begin to live as one who no longer leaks energy through pretense. Your focus will sharpen, your presence deepen, your joy steady. You will discover that the more authentic you become, the more energy returns to you. Because truth is not heavy, lies are. The moment you stop pretending, the soul stops leaking. The moment you stop performing, the spirit begins to flow again. You will feel lighter, not because you've lost anything, but because you've let go of everything that was not you. The world around you will not change immediately, but your way of seeing it will. You will look at others and feel compassion where you once felt comparison. You will see through the masks they wear, not with judgment, but with tenderness. You will understand that everyone is fighting the same quiet war, the war between who they appear to be and who they truly are. And instead of competing with their illusion, you will call to their truth. You will speak words that heal instead of harm, eyes that bless instead of measure. You will move through the world like a quiet reminder that peace is still possible, that holiness can exist in the midst of chaos, that love still walks among us disguised as ordinary faces. And one day, when you least expect it, you will see your reflection again, perhaps in a window or a river or the eyes of someone you've helped, and it will startle you, not because you look different, but because you feel different. You will realize that you are no longer searching for beauty. You have become its vessel. You no longer drain yourself chasing light, because the light has rooted itself within you. You no longer need the world's validation, because you have become your own witness. You no longer fear time, because time cannot age what is eternal. And that is the great secret. Beauty is not youth. It is truth. It is not symmetry. It is sincerity. It is not the absence of imperfection, but the presence of love. When the spirit remembers this, the face glows, the voice softens, the hands give freely. That glow cannot be faked, because it is the soul's signature. It comes only when you have stopped performing for love and started being loved. And when you reach that place, you will understand what all the saints, sages, and poets meant when they spoke of divine radiance. You will understand why Moses' face shone when he descended from the mountain, why the mystics spoke of inner light, why heaven is described as brilliance. For it is not light you put on, it is light that you uncover, light that you have carried all along. And when your time here ends, when all the bottles are empty and the mirrors darken, that light will remain. It will not fade with your body, because it never belonged to your body. It will pass through the veil unbroken, joining the great sea of illumination that has no name, no form, no boundary. And in that eternal radiance, you will finally understand that nothing in this world ever truly drained you. It only invited you to remember where your light was coming from. You were never meant to chase beauty. You were meant to become the proof that divine love can live in human form, fragile, flawed, radiant, and free. And when the world sees you like that, it will know, without a word spoken, that heaven still breathes among us. And as that final understanding settles into the marrow of your being, life ceases to feel like a performance and begins to unfold like prayer. You walk slower, you breathe deeper, you listen longer. You begin to treat every moment as sacred, not because it flatters you, but because it reveals you. You no longer divide your days between the spiritual and the ordinary. You begin to see that they were never separate. Every sunrise is a benediction. Every touch, every word, every glance has weight again. Even the act of waking becomes a kind of resurrection. And what a quiet, extraordinary freedom this is, to live without needing to impress, without the ache of constant approval. You begin to sense that all along you were being called not to be flawless, but to be faithful to the truth that moves through you, to the light that asks only to be expressed. You begin to feel beauty not as something seen, but as something felt, an invisible current flowing through all things. The tree, the rain, the laughter of a child, even the lines on your hands, all of them hum with the same silent music. You begin to understand that you are not merely surrounded by beauty. You are its expression. The world outside is only echoing what already exists within. And this realization changes everything about desire. You no longer chase, because you have learned to attract not by effort, but by alignment. You attract peace by being peaceful. You attract love by being loving. You attract truth by being true. And what once felt like a relentless pursuit now feels like a returning. You return to simplicity, to honesty, to humility. You return to the center where all striving ends and joy quietly begins. The light you carry becomes gentle, not proud. It does not demand attention. It grants it. It listens. It notices. It forgives. You find yourself drawn to those who have suffered, those who have fallen, those whose beauty the world has overlooked because you recognize them. You see in them the same divine spark that once flickered faintly within you, and in your seeing it reignites. You learn that to bless is to give back what you have received, the grace of being seen without judgment. It is then that you realize the greatest miracle of transformation. True beauty is contagious. It does not compete, it completes. It does not diminish others, it awakens them. When a soul is at peace, everyone who meets it remembers something they had forgotten. A calm person calms others. A kind heart softens others. A truthful soul frees others. This is how light multiplies quietly, invisibly, effortlessly. One awakened heart becomes 100, and 100 become 1,000. The radiance of one soul that refuses to bow to vanity can redeem an entire generation's definition of worth. And perhaps that is the true purpose behind every struggle you've endured, the exhaustion, the comparison, the emptiness. It was never to destroy you, but to teach you where your power does not come from. You had to lose yourself in false reflections so that one day you could recognize the real one. You had to chase artificial light to remember the Sunday. You had to be drained to realize where the wellspring truly lies. Because the spirit cannot awaken in theory. It awakens in hunger, in fatigue, in the deep ache of forgetting. And when it finally remembers, the joy is unspeakable. So now, when you see a face consumed by insecurity or a soul lost in illusion, do not judge them, pray for them. They are you in another time. Offer them not correction, but compassion, for it is kindness, not condemnation, that breaks the spell. It is gentleness, not guilt, that opens the eye. And if they mock you, if they do not understand your peace, smile. The light never argues with darkness. It simply shines. In time, your life itself becomes your sermon. You will not need to speak of spiritual energy or hidden drains. You will embody replenishment. You will walk through crowds without losing your stillness. You will face mirrors without losing your soul. You will hold beauty in your hands and no longer mistake it for worth. You will begin to see that even the most fragile things, makeup, perfume, adornment, can become sacred when used in gratitude instead of greed. The sin was never in the object. It was in the obsession. And when love replaces obsession, everything becomes holy again. The way you touch your face becomes reverent. The way you greet others becomes radiant. The way you look at the world becomes redemptive. You begin to understand what it means to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your strength, because now even your reflection is part of that love. You tend to it, not as an idol, but as a garden. You adorn it not as a display, but as devotion. You honor it not because it defines you, but because it reminds you of the artist who shaped you. And as the years pass and the body changes, you will find no fear in the fading of what once was. For the face may lose youth, but the spirit gains depth. The light may shift from the skin to the eyes, from the eyes to the voice, from the voice to the silence that follows it. You will realize that every wrinkle is a scriptural verse written by time itself, a testament of laughter, endurance, tenderness, and prayer. You will look at yourself and see not loss, but layers of grace. And when that day comes, when you can look at your reflection and feel only gratitude, you will know that your beauty has matured into wisdom. You will know that you have become the kind of person whose peace is more persuasive than their perfection. You will know that nothing, not even the glittering machinery of the world, can drain you anymore. because your light no longer depends on admiration. It depends on alignment. You will rise each morning not to improve yourself, but to express what is already divine within you. You will meet the day not with insecurity, but with invitation. Let this day be another chance to love. And the universe, always obedient to love, will respond in kind. Every encounter will mirror your state of grace. Every challenge will become a teacher. Every imperfection will turn to poetry. And one day, when your journey reaches its last dawn, and your body returns to the dust it borrowed, that light pure, undiminished, will rise from you like breath returning to its source. The face you once painted, powdered, and perfected will fade, but the radiance that once shone behind it will not, for it was never yours alone. It was the reflection of the eternal within you, the same light that began the world, the same light that will end it, the same light that, through you, remembered how to shine. And in that final quiet, when heaven unveils your true reflection, you will see yourself as you are always meant to be, neither adorned nor ashamed, neither young nor old, but luminous. The soul that once sought beauty will have become beauty. The seeker will have become what they sought. The mirror will finally disappear, for there will be no separation left between the image and the source, between the seen and the seer. Only light, only love, only God.